It's a new era for the Pittsburgh Penguins with Kyle Dubas at the helm, so did they doob the thing in the draft this year? Let's have a look. So the Pittsburgh Penguins had 2 second-round picks this year, and they were almost back-to-back, and they used both on WHL players in Harrison Brunick and Tanner Howe. We'll start with Brunick, and I had Brunick ranked, but quite a lot later. Again, this is a player who is a really gifted skater. He has some good offensive zone instincts that can pinch up in the offensive zone and generate offense around the net, which is fine and dandy, but I think that there's a lack of refinement in his game, moving the puck up the ice dependably, moving the puck around the defensive zone with calculated attempts, and actually hitting line mates accurately. It was just a bit of an issue that I noted a little bit too often for me. I thought he did have a good under 18, looking really solid, especially off of the puck, and when the puck is on his stick and he has a clear lane to go up the ice, there's a lot to bank on there. I just think he still has a bit of a ways to go to be an NHL pick, and there were other players I would have targeted this high, but it's a decent selection, and who knows what he could turn into from here. There's a lot of good tools. But Tanner Howe is another interesting one. I had him ranked 47th, so this is right around where I had him. He's a pretty competitive guy. He goes hard, he competes, he gets up the ice pretty well. I find that his passing accuracy and at least his ideas are very intelligent, very calculated, and he does seem to just have a really good read of the ice. He seems like a player where if he were on a better WHL team, he may very well have been considered a first-round pick more often, and I think this is just a good value pick to take a swing on. Yes, you may look at his production last year and playing with Connor Bedard compared to this year and not see much of an improvement, but he didn't have Connor Bedard on the team anymore, and he was the guy now. So we'll see what happens with Howe. I'm interested in what he turns into. I could see him being maybe a decent third-line NHL player on the wings. I don't know exactly how much upside he has, but he at least brings enough to the game where you could see some kind of NHL player in him. At 111th, they drafted Chase Pietila out of Michigan Tech, and I watched a bit of this guy there, and nothing really jumped out at me. He's a decently intelligent guy who gets around the ice, similar to the Patrick Geary pick in this year's draft, just a decently well-rounded, mature defenseman that, maybe he could eat some minutes in the future, but, he struck me as just a decent guy, and that's perfectly fine to draft. At 175th, they drafted another twice undrafted player in Una Väisänen. Now, you may not believe me, but funnily enough, at the beginning of the draft season 2 years ago, Väisänen was one of the first players I tracked a couple of games of. I didn't see it then, but there were moments that I really liked out of him in terms of the skill with the puck on his stick, the deception that he had in transition, and how he used his edges to be really creative with the puck. And unlike a lot of defensemen I saw early in the year last year, there just was very little refinement, not a lot of pace in his game, and he had a lot of good ideas and fun creative thoughts going on, but the execution just wasn't there. And he seems to have evolved into a pretty solid defenseman at the USHL level. I'm not sure how I feel about drafting twice undrafted defensemen out of the US Hockey League, but he was a pretty good one this year, and I thought played decently well at the World Juniors, and you go to college and you never know what he turns into. He was decently solid this season, so we'll see what happens. At 207th overall, the Pittsburgh Penguins took a swing on the draft model boy in Max Swanson. Now look, Max Swanson is very tiny. Like, really tiny. Sometimes I will excuse players that are 5'7", 5'8", because they're just so competitive, so fast, so physical, and they overcompensate for the lack of size that they have. As much as I hate to say it, Max Swanson is not that. Max Swanson is a 5'6" player who is remarkably confident with the puck on his stick and has all the skill in the world to be just a tremendous amount of fun to watch. But there were moments this year where I'd see him cross the offensive blue line, cut across the middle of the ice with the puck on his stick, try to pull it around a defender. The defender would just go, and Swanson's feet would go out from under him. He'd be on the ice and sliding into the corner and completely not be a factor in the offensive zone anymore. That happened more often than you would think. He is very small. He is very light on his feet. Not the most resilient player in the world, but if you give him space, he will embarrass you. The problem is that he won't have that luxury moving forward. I think he could develop into a really good college player, a really fun, skilled, really interesting player in the same sense of like a Bobby Trevino did, and maybe he would be a very interesting target as an NCAA free agent, and maybe Pittsburgh's just getting out ahead of that idea, but I think he is a big long shot to make the NHL. But if he does, he'll be a lot of fun, so I can't fault them for taking a chance on him. We'll see what happens. And then at 223rd, Pittsburgh drafted Finn Harding from the Mississauga Steelheads, and I saw Finn Harding a little bit this year and went back after the draft happened and went and watched a little more of him. He's fine. I don't really have a whole lot to say about him. Maybe he's just a really nice kid and they're giving him a pat on the back and drafting him late and just holding on to him and seeing what happens. Because nothing really stood out to me with Finn Harding. I didn't think he was particularly poor. I still feel like there might have been players I would have pushed for before the end of the draft that were younger and maybe a bit further along in their development, but he brings some interesting cerebral defending and good positional sense to the game that maybe could be something. But if he is, he just is, and I don't really see it right now. But there are many of those players, and who knows. So for me, the Pittsburgh Penguins get a 2C. I think there's a really wide variety of futures for a lot of these players. Harrison Brunick has interesting tools that could take him a long way, but actually playing major minutes in the NHL might be a bit of a stretch as he is right now. I think Tanner Howe could easily turn into a bottom six energy guy, maybe a little bit more than that if the skill level and the pace of his game and the resiliency under pressure improves. Pietila, Väisänen, and Swanson, you just send to college, cross your fingers, and see what you get. I probably wouldn't have gone with Pietila and Väisänen in those areas, but I mean, Väisänen is in a decent range for, I guess, taking a swing on that guy. And Finn Harding, I don't know, re-entry CHL players that late in the draft. I'm not going to split hairs, but I feel like you can make more calculated bets elsewhere. So all in all, I think they ended up with a pretty interesting draft class, even if I think there's a very wide range of possibilities for a lot of these players. So that's it for the Pittsburgh Penguins. If you liked the video, you can check the description for our Fanatics affiliate link, where anything you buy in the store will give us a small kickback, or you can go to Scouching.ca, where a subscription will get you access to a private Discord server, as well as plenty of exclusive goodies like data tables you won't find anywhere else on drafted and undrafted prospects, as well as exclusive blog content and early access to other content, so you can check that out at Scouching.ca. So with that, we go from one black and yellow team in Pittsburgh to the other black and yellow team, and the penultimate recap for this season is on the Boston Bruins.